That is a magnificent piano. I am Sam here at Rick Jones Pianos with a Steinway Model O that has been completely rebuilt, partially by a previous technician, perhaps 2 or 3 decades ago. We have since done some more work to this piano to really bring it back, in our opinion, to a like-new condition. The previous technician who worked on this piano, who did a good job. We looked on the underside of where the pin block is and all the soundboard repairs and the way the strings are installed. I tuned the piano, the pins are super tight. The technician definitely knew what they were doing, and they got a very close fit of the pin block to the underside of the plate, which is crucial for tuning stability. It's the type of work we do here when we rebuild the Steinway, try to make that fit as tight as possible, like it would have been at the Steinway factory. This technician did a good job. It was not necessary to replace those parts, and they're still in excellent condition. What we didn't like so much was the finish of the piano. Perhaps the technician's strength was more in belly work than on the outside, belly work being the soundboard and strings. So in our shop here, we have refinished this piano in this absolutely stunning gloss mahogany. It's like a French polish. Often we do satin finishes, which is more traditional, I suppose. But I know Steinway does offer a higher gloss lacquer finish in their pianos. Perhaps they did at the time this piano was made. I'm not so sure about that. But the gloss is definitely popular these days, and we've gotten more requests for it recently. And so here is a piano, a Steinway that's been rebuilt, refinished in our shop by my colleague Jose, who does beautiful work. It's a beautiful piece of furniture. It's the type of finish I would want on my own piano if I had the choice. Mahogany, the grain on this mahogany it's very vivid, and well, many different manufacturers offer a mahogany finish of some sort, and they can stain it brown or red. We go for something that's kind of right in between, a nice happy medium between too red and too brown. But a lot of it is just the grain itself, and a lot of other manufacturers who were not in the business of making as high quality pianos would choose a veneer that looks good enough that would have been sufficient for customers who didn't want to spend as much money. Not Steinway. When Steinway did mahogany, they chose a really vivid veneer, and this is a beautiful example of it. It's mahogany, and we determine that by the grain, but it's so vivid. There's all these squiggly lines all over the place. It's a really stunning piece of furniture, and our gloss finish was able to really bring that out in this piano. So, absolutely beautiful piece of furniture, and I'm quite pleased to present it like this. Oh, and I should add, it does have nickel hardware, which is what was more common at the time this piano was made, at least in higher-end pianos. It was made in New York in 1914. I forgot to mention that. And so back before about 1930, Steinway used nickel on the hinges, all the other little metal parts, the casters, the pedals. We've gotten the pedals replated by a specialist in piano hardware to make it look as shiny as it would have been when it's new. And well, we don't get requested too often, but there are customers, shoppers out there who know about these differences in pianos, how most pianos have brass, but maybe you don't like that color for whatever reason. If you have to have nickel, I think you'll be very pleased with the way this turned out. The nickel is very shiny, and it's complemented by a beautiful finish. So, stunning piano as a piece of furniture, and a really satisfying musical instrument to play. I mentioned the previous technician did a lot of belly work. They also replaced the hammers, including the shanks and flanges, with new parts from New York. So these are Steinway hammers from, say, 20 or 30 years ago-ish. We replaced the whip-ins in this piano, or as Steinway calls them, repetitions. We used Tokiwa parts made in Japan, very good quality in my opinion, very easy to work with. And we also replaced the key tops and rebushed the keys, really did our normal royal treatment that we do to pianos, Steinways in particular, to really bring them back to a like-new condition, to really make it play as well as it can. And the bar is pretty high for a Steinway because they were designed to have a very refined musical capability to begin with, and that is what we aim to do when we rebuild these pianos. And we as technicians, we're proud of doing good work. And when we work on a high quality piano like this, we get good results. And I'm very pleased with how this piano turned out as a piano, as something that you play. It's very satisfying to play. It reminds me a bit of a modern Steinway, I'll say. Sort of, especially the way it feels. It has more of a firmer touch, more substantial, which is not something that early 20th century pianos are known for. The taste back then, more often, was to have a somewhat easier touch, but tastes have changed. Modern Steinways, in my opinion, definitely tend to have a firmer touch, and I've had many other technicians and customers tell me the same, that they have a similar experience with more modern Steinways. Oftentimes teachers prefer their students to have a piano like that to practice on at home, so they're better prepared for a Steinway, which is going to be at the school, in the teaching studio, or on the stage if they make them do performances. And well, this piano reminds me very much of the type of Steinway, at least musically, that you would find in the school nowadays. It has, at least a school that's maintaining their pianos, it has that really substantial, satisfying feel, without being too heavy. I will say, if you prefer a light touch, I'm not so sure you would enjoy playing this piano. I myself prefer a light touch, but I can appreciate a satisfying, firm touch piano when I encounter one, and this one is quite satisfying. Feels like I'm playing a big piano. This is only a Model O, so it was the smallest piano Steinway made at the time, smallest grand piano that is, 5 foot 10 inches long. And yet when I was playing it, I thought I was playing a piano that was substantially longer than 6 feet. It really has a big sound and a really substantial feel to the keys that, well, larger pianos will have longer keys internally. You're moving more weight when you press down a key on a larger piano because they got more room to work with in a large piano, and generally better leverage that can result. Plus, hammers are oftentimes heavier in a larger piano to match the longer string and give it a lot of tonal projection. But this is the type of thing you will often find in Steinway grands of a size smaller than you would expect. This is one thing that Steinway's been known for well over 100 years now. Every size of piano they make, grand pianos at least, they sound bigger than they look. And I really felt like I was playing a 6-foot piano easily, like a 6.5-foot piano. As I was playing this, it really had that big projecting sound, not harsh, just very big. And as I said, a really not quite concert grand feel, but a really satisfying feel. So I'm very pleased with how this piano turned out. The tone, strictly speaking, with respect to mellowness and brightness, I think it's in the middle. I'll call it in the middle, because when you play it loudly, it gets really bold and brilliant, which is what you would want to fill a relatively large room, such as what Steinways are so good at filling. But when you play very softly, and you don't lose any of the notes either, it's all there. That's the regulation we achieve on our pianos, to be as subtle as possible. And when you play softly like that, it's a very warm sound, very warm and creamy. So really wide dynamic range, which I think averages out, at least the midpoint of that range is, say, a 5 on our scale from 1 to 10, from mellow to bright. But I mean, there's so much more to the tonal quality of a piano than just mellowness and brightness, and generally the better quality a piano, such as a Steinway, the more richness in color and dimensions of tone you can get. This piano definitely delivers on that. And I'm really quite amazed at the dynamic range of this piano. It can get really thunderously big sound, and also get really super subtle and soft and delicate. So, and as I mentioned, the touches on the firm side reminds me of a modern Steinway, as I said. That works itself out to be a 6 on the scale from 1 to 10, from light to firm. What else can I say? Oh, of course, like everything else we sell, it has a 10-year warranty, all parts and labor, and 100% lifetime trade-up guarantee. Please make sure to have it in tune at least twice a year, 2 times a year by a professional technician. I think if you have this in your home, you're going to want to make sure you keep it in good condition. We certainly hope you do, and it's what we ask of everyone. So twice a year tuning, and also moderate stable humidity to ensure the structural integrity, especially of the wooden parts of the piano. One of the reasons why this piano has survived, what is this? It's 111 years old. Steinway pianos tend to survive that long because they were made with such good materials. The stock of wood that they used was really high quality, and it was put together really well. And so they're more likely to hold up with time, even in humidity changes, but you don't want to subject the piano to humidity changes if you can help it. You really want to make sure it's as moderate and constant as possible so that the soundboard's not expanding and contracting too much. And that will ensure that this piano can last for another 111 years. And we expect pianos like this to be rebuilt perhaps many times for many, many decades from now. It's an American treasure for a reason. Very satisfying musically. And, well, I'll say it this way, if you make sure you take good care of this piano, you won't have to worry about potentially having it rebuilt until your grandchildren have it or something. We're talking a long time from now. Your grandchildren, if you're like my age right now. What was this? Right, so the warranty, the trade-in, 100% lifetime trade-in guarantee. Well, most people probably aren't going to be trading a piano like this in. You can do it if you want in the future. Come back to us, trade this piano in for precisely its instrument sales price. That's what we mean by 100% lifetime trade-up guarantee. All you do is pay the difference in price between piano 1 and piano 2, and any shipping or tax if it pertains. And that's the type of confidence we have in our pianos as technicians. We do the work right to begin with to make sure it's as good as it can be and really set it on the right track for the long term. And we often get pianos back even after 20, 30 years. Sometimes have to replace parts just because they've been played a lot, but if it's been well maintained otherwise, the piano's still alive, we put work into it, regulate it, and the piano is just as rewarding as it was 30 years ago. And that's what you can expect if you take good care of your piano. So the trade-in is merely an option. You don't have to take it. For many people, a Steinway is understandably their last piano. Oftentimes we have customers who purchase a lesser expensive piano from us, maybe work their way up, trading up from an upright to a grand, to a larger grand, or whatever. I would say if you want to have a Steinway, I think you'll be really pleased with how this one turned out. It would definitely be an upgrade over many pianos out there. So that's an option that you have with us. What else can I say? It does have a bench that we're including. This is an artist bench. Very nice plush cushion. It does not open to store music. Rather, there are mechanisms on the underside that allow the seat to be adjusted up and down using these knobs. Especially good for families if you have children who are learning to play, and if you're a parent, an adult returning to the piano after many years, you can adjust the bench just to fit yourself as you play, and they can adjust the bench to fit themselves as they play. And then finally, I can say that Steinway still makes a Model O today. For many years, they made a Model L, which was the same size. It had more of a square tail. But in more recent years, they went back to the Model O, which has the round tail, same size, 5'10½". The Model O today, with a mahogany finish, lists for $125,900. And I'm sure it's a stunning piano. Steinway is, as they ever have been, known for high quality. If you were to go into a new Steinway dealer, you could play a Steinway O in a mahogany finish and see for yourself how nice they are. As technicians, we see the late model Steinways come in from like the 90s, and you can tell the quality has remained as high as it's ever been. Nonetheless, we challenge you to see whether that piano new is over 4 times as good as this piano in terms of appearance, in terms of musical capability, the feel of the keys, especially the appearance. We know they do a good job in New York with their finishes. We made sure we did a good job on this finish to make it look like new. You can feel free to observe for yourself these things, the difference between the new Steinway and this Steinway we have in our inventory for over 4 times less. And you can conclude for yourself whether the new one is 4 times better. That's up to you, but let it suffice to say that I think you'll be very impressed with how this piano turned out. I certainly am. So please stop by, try this out for yourself. You can play it along with anything else in our inventory. But if you can't make it, you can always give us a phone call or send us an email if you have any